All right, so moving forward, this is part 2. Now that we have this rig pretty much built, there are a couple more nodes that we need to create. One is the move, scale, rotate node at the top. So I'm going to select the base con null. I'm going to hit control, hold down control and tap G. And I'm going to call this MSR_GRP. And then I hit enter. And now between the waist, actually what I need to do is select the, yeah, this is the right one, the base joint. And I hit control G and it created another group node right in between the base con and the base joint. So I'm going to rename this one joint space underscore group, and I hit enter. So now we have our completed rig as far as the spine, but we still need to make a couple of foot controls. So to make the foot controls, I'm going to go to the top view this time, and I'm going to put a couple of joints around the foot pad. So I'm going to say skeleton, create joints. And let's see. I think I'm going to actually snap it to, I'm going to hold down V so it snaps to the first joint, I'm sorry, the first vertex on the left side. And I'll scale that down again. 1, 2, 5. Actually, maybe these will be even smaller since these are less important. I'll make it 0.06 or something. So here's that joint. And this time I want you to really pay attention to the values here, because I'm going to use those to create the other ones. So that's going to be the left toe or toe left joint. So I'm going to hit control D to duplicate that. And you can see in the hierarchy that I have joint 2 selected, but all I need to do to position it is delete the negative X and make it a positive X. And it should just pop over to the correct position. So I'm going to take that same value, control C, and I'm going to hit control D to duplicate. And in joint 3, I'm going to paste that value at the Z, translate Z, control V, and hit enter. And I'm going to duplicate that one again, control D. And this time for joint 4, I'm going to position it in the negative translate Z. So these two, joint 3 and 4, those are going to be the top or front and back. So all I need to do now is just delete the translate X, or not delete it, but zero it out. And now those are in position. And I'm going to check real fast because I can see that there's a translate Y that I probably don't want on any of these. But before I do that, I'm going to go to the front view. Yeah, these are a little bit too high. So I could just zero these out. And now they're at the foot. And maybe I'm just experimenting. Maybe I want these to be right in the middle of the foot, somewhere right there. Okay. So now that I've made my new foot joints, I need to rename them. So like I said, joint 1, I'm going to call that TOE capital L underscore JNT. And I'll just keep copy pasting this underscore joint, control C. Oh, you know what? I'll just do the whole thing because these are all toes. Control C, control V, and I'm going to rename that toe left. I'm going to call it toe right. Joint 3 is going to be toe front, control V, so that L becomes an F. And then joint 4 becomes toe back, the B. All right, and of course those names are going to be important because those are what we're going to name the cons and the nulls. But these values here that each joint has, we're going to leave those. We're not going to get rid of those. We're just going to ignore them. Now we just want to make sure they're in the right position before we move forward. All right, so to create the control handles, I'm going to set the pawn to what's it called? Transparency. I'm going to say create NURBS primitives, NURBS circle. And instead of being right in the middle, I'm going to hold down, oh, you know what? I should probably turn off the other joints. In fact, what I need to do is I need to set these to a layer. So I'm going to select this MSR group that I created. I'm going to create a new layer and assign selected objects. And I'll call this cons underscore LYR. Okay, so I can turn these off for a second. So the only reason I turned those off was so that so they don't accidentally snap to the control handles that I had previously made. So this, I'm gonna go back to the top view. This NURB circle 1 that I just created, I'm going to hold down V and it'll snap, should snap to my it's not snapping. There we go. So I just turned off the pawn. I don't really need it right now. Snap it there, and then I'll scale this down. And I'm going to reshape this to look more like a petal almost. So I'll grab these guys and drag them in. Maybe this middle guy and drag, oops. Control vertex, grab the middle guy and drag him even further. And what does that look like on the pawn? That's pretty decent. All right, so this guy is going to, the center pivot of this NURBS circle is going to be at the center of this toe joint. So I'm going to freeze transformations on this one already. Modify freeze transformations. And then I'm going to hit Control D and snap that to here, Control D, hold down V to snap it to the back one, Control D, hold down V to snap it to the front. And now I'm just going to give these guys individual 90-degree rotations to get them in position. This is -90. And then this one will be 180. All right, so now if I turn on my pawn again, I can easily grab these guys without being in the position, without worrying about if they're in the in place of the other controls that I made. All right, so just like I made sure that all these guys are named properly, I need to make sure that these guys are named properly also. Oh yeah, I need to group these guys first. So NURB circle 1 underscore G, NURB circle 2 underscore G. I'm sorry. What did I say? Anyways, NURB circle 3, not underscore, but control G is what I meant to say. NURB circle 4, control G. So those are all grouped. And then group 1 is for toe left. So I grab toe left, I hold down Shift, select its parent, and I hit P. Toe right, is that group 2? Yes. Toe right, NURB circle 2, hit P. Toe front, NURB circle 3, hit P. Toe back, NURB circle 4, hit P. Okay, there's one thing that I missed, and I missed this on the bigger rig that we made, but we'll fix it in a second. If I go to joint toe left, or left toe, anyways, you can see that the position is correct. The center pivot is in the correct position. I'm going to turn my pawn off again, but you can see from this view, NURB circle 1 it's in the right position from the top view, but it's obviously below where we want it to be. In fact, I don't want it to be on the ground. So just real quickly, I'm going to undo those. And I want them to snap to the actual these control handles. The center pivot should be at the center of these joints. So I'm going to turn off my pawn again. Where do you go? There you go. So I'm going to hold down V, and I'm going to snap it to the middle of the vertex. Go to the next one. These all need to be in the right position. Oh, actually, that one's okay. The next one, that one's okay. I might have just missed the first one. The other ones look like they're in the right position. Yeah. The other thing is I need to make sure that these groups are also not at the center pivot of the base of the whole pawn, but they need to be centered with this vertex also. So the groups, I'm going to hold down D as in dog and V as in Victor. And I'm going to snap them to their, oh, that one's correct. I think it was just the first. No, I forgot. The group is what I'm looking for. Yeah. Hold down D as in dog and V as in Victor at the same time and snap them to the vertex, the center of the joints. Left, control the group, DV. Oops, hit Z. Yeah, if you don't do it in the right order, it might move your object. So make sure you're doing it in the right order. Group 3, DV. There we go. So now these are correct. And just to make sure, I'm going to go back here and make sure that these are also, these nulls. Yeah, you can see these nulls. That's supposed to be at the base of the, that should be up here. So that null, I'm going to hold down D as in D and V at the same time and snap it till it gets to the head joint. The neck con null, same thing, D, V. Oops, hit Z, D and V. Snap it to the neck joint. Chest con null, D and V. Hit Z because I don't want it to move. Hold down D and V. And you can tell if you're doing it right. If you hold down D and V, the little center circle will turn, it'll turn into a circle from a square. If it's just D like I was doing, it's a square, but if you hold down D and V at the same time, it should turn into a circle. Then you can snap it. The waist con null. Yeah, same thing. D, V. And then the base should be fine because that one is out the bottom. Joint space group, I think that one's fine also. MSR should also be there. Okay. So I'm going to save those changes. File, save scene. So now, let me turn off my controls again. And we're just focusing on these feet, the foot pads. I need to parent these guys again because I did it wrong the first time. Hit P, toe right, and NURB circle 2, and hit P. Toe front, shift, NURB circle 3. Oops, that's not right, is it? Toe front should be with NURB circle 4, shift. Yeah. So that's one thing you want to be careful about is parenting it to the right parent. Toe back should be circle 3. There we go. Now these guys are in the right positions. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's a translate Y -0. That pops up quite a bit when you're rigging. And it's something that you can just ignore. Ideally it would be 0 with no negative or whatever, but it works for us. So we won't worry about it. So the next step is what? What's the next thing I need to do? Remember what I did over here?
I honestly have no idea.
Are you pairing the toes to the actual big one now? Like all group 1, 2, 3, and 4. Are you pairing that to the hierarchy right there, the taller
Good,
one?
that's right. So that is true. These nulls are going to be parented to the bigger hierarchy. But before we do that, something else needs to happen. Is there something wrong? Do you guys see anything wrong here?
You need to name them properly.
Exactly. So this is a really big part of rigging. Rigging can get really messy, and students especially, and I was one of those. And I'm still a student. I'm forever a student. But it's really easy to just, well, I know which joint that is. I don't need to name it. And then you start creating FK and IK joints that sit on top of each other, and then you keep getting them confused. So it's just one of the biggest parts of rigging is staying organized by properly naming everything. So I'm going to be responsible. Control C, Control V. Oh, there's something else that I forgot. Can you guys tell what else it is while I'm doing this?
Putting all of them besides each other, like unparenting them.
Well, so we're going to parent them, but also notice how the control handles, they have values in the translate Ys.
Oh.
So I need to freeze transformations, and I also need to delete history. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and name these. Control V underscore NULL. I'm going to take the whole thing and just copy that and enter. Actually, maybe I'll do it this way. Control V, and that'll be toe right, and delete the left. Control V, this is toe back. Control V, toe front. Okay, so those are the nulls. Then I have to do the same thing with the control handles. Control C. And you don't have to copy paste like I'm doing. It's just, I find that it's a lot faster this way. Oops, make sure you get the whole name deleted first. So this is toe right. Control V. This one is toe back. Control V, toe front. Okay, so they're all properly named. Now I need to delete history and freeze transformations. And again, it's really important to delete history on the control handles, the ones in the middle, because that's where the animation actually needs to rest. If you start with translate Y at 0.043, you'll never have a clean translate Y. Freeze transformations. All right, so now we can parent these things. And let's see, base con. You know what, I'm gonna cheat again, and I'm gonna look at my reference to make sure that I parent it in the right spot. So these guys, let's see, the toe. Yeah, so here's my original reference. These nulls are parented to the joint space group. So they're not only parents of they're children of the joint space group, but they have a sibling. The base joint is their sibling. All right, so I'm going to parent them to this guy. So I go back over here, select these guys all together, go over here to the parent. I hold down Shift and I select the parent. Then I hit P, and they should drop down there. Uh-oh, let's see what happened here. Oh, so they disappeared because they were added to this hierarchy, which is turned off. So if I turn that hierarchy back on, you should see them again. Let's see if we turn on our pawn. All right. So if I select this guy and I hit E, for the most part, this is what we're wanting to do with it. A little bit of rotation there. Maybe I hit W and I can drag it up and down, but that's kind of what we're limited. We want to limit this movement. We don't want, we don't necessarily want to drag it all over the place. This is just a little bit of toe flop. All right, so I'm gonna, I'll just keep going. So the next, after we've created our toe cons and we've cleaned everything up and everything's in good shape, I'm just gonna check one last time. We keep those values on the joints. I'm going to select the mesh. Well, first I'm going to select the joints. So I have to unrestrict my mesh. And actually, you know what? Going back to my reference, I wanted to point something else out. The mesh, if I look at where the mesh is in my hierarchy, it also has a group, and it's parented under the base con null. No, I'm sorry. It's parented under the MSR, but its sibling is this base con null. So there's two things I need to do. I need to create a group for the mesh, and then I need to parent it to the MSR. So let's do that. Okay, so here's our mesh. So how do I create a group for this mesh? You guys remember?
Control G.
Control G, very good. And I needed to point something else out. My pawn has history. And the reason, normally I would delete the history, but if you have blend shapes, like this guy who can turn into a rook and all that stuff, a knight, a bishop, queen, all that stuff, you want to keep those blend shapes. If you delete history, that blend disappears also. So you wouldn't want to delete history on a mesh that has this stuff, especially if it's like a facial rig for blend shapes. But for your sakes, I'm not going to worry about this. If you guys, unless you guys created blend shapes for extra credit, I'm going to go ahead and delete history on this guy. I already this isn't my original file, so I can delete history on this guy. All right, so now this group, I'm going to call this, I think I called it mesh _ grp. And then I'm going to parent this guy, the mesh group, to the MSR. So I shift, select the parent, and then I hit P. All right, so now my controls are in order. Now I'm going to go through and select just the joints. So base joint, shift select waist joint, chest joint, neck, head, top, and then the toes, left, right, back, and front. So with all my joints selected, I'm going to now select, and this is all shift select my pawn. Now I'm going to go to skin, bind skin, and I'm going to go to the options box. And for the most part, we want, we just looking at a hierarchy, selected joints, we want it to be in the hierarchy. Closest distance versus closest in hierarchy. There's a couple different ways you can do this. A heat map is kind of a cool thing, but this is a simple enough rig. I don't think we need to really bother with all this stuff. We'll just say closest distance. So in other words, that's asking, looking at this mesh, the vertices that are closest to this joint are going to be parented to it. Same thing over here. Whatever vertices are closest to this joint are going to be parented, and it's going to add less influence the farther away you get from those joints. So there will still be some influence from some of the joints that are farther away, but not nearly as much as the joints that are right in front there. Normalize weights. We'll go ahead and leave those values as is, and we'll say bind skin. Something I forgot to mention, I didn't version up, and I just bound the skin, and you can see it took a little bit to finally bind. This is a very simple character. When you have a full body character with all the fingers and the facial controls, it's going to take longer to bind. And you want to version up for sure. So I'm going to say file, save scene as. In case you need to go backwards, I mean, you can always just unbind it, but this is a major step in the rigging process, the binding. So I would set up my joint chain, and then I would version up before I bound the skin. All right, so now we're going to test this. So I'm just going to grab some of these joints. No, not the joints. I'm going to grab the control handles and hit E and just rotate.
Are we gonna have to do this individually for each pawn, or can we almost like copy and paste the?
That's a great
rigging?
question. So if your characters are all built off of the same pawn, you can just duplicate this mesh. Control D. And let's say I'm going to move this guy off this duplicate.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's the beauty of this stuff is you shouldn't have to rig 4 characters to do it. Uh-oh, it didn't work. The important thing is you don't have to do all this stuff. You might have to rebind. So I would just select my base, waist, chest, neck, head, top, my toes, and then the mesh. And I would say bind skin. And now I would test it and see if it works. So yeah, that works. So looking at the toes, I'm going to zoom down here. So the other thing is, even though, this is group 1, this is the original, you're going to want to name them better than just group 1 and group 2. Maybe this is Chavo and this is, what was the other guy's name? But you should be able to scale this to make this guy bigger or make him maybe taller. So maybe he's kind of a different character. Maybe you scale the head down or something. Anyways, you can customize these a little bit. So yeah, looking at the foot controls, so I hit E, and if you rotate it down, it looks kind of like a skid, and it actually goes through the ground. I can pull it up a little bit, or I can just drag it up and you get kind of a toe tap. So you might want to do both of those, or I'm going to unbind for a second. Let's see. Yeah, they're unbound. So maybe I want to change the position of these to the ground. So if I'm gonna grab all these guys, the foot controls, and you don't have to do this. It's just more a matter of testing out your rig and seeing what works best for you. So I'm going to drop these to the grid, and then I'm going to delete history, or I'm sorry, freeze transformations on the. You know what? I might need to unparent them for a second, but let's see if this works. I'm just going to grab the shift select the toe controls, and then say modify freeze transformation. Yeah, it did it. All right, so now if we rebind this thing, I'm going to reselect my base, waist, chest, neck, head, top, joints only, and then the pawn geo. And now if I bind the skin, now I'm going to test the feet and see how well they work. So that's lower. If I rotate it, they shouldn't be, they should not be restricted. So I'm going to select those and unrestrict them. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to check the other controls, make sure they're not restricted. Yeah, they're good. It's just the toe controls that I accidentally restricted. So I'm going to unlock those. Unlock selected. There we go. And now I should be able to rotate. Yeah. And there's really not any influence. So I think it might have been better the first way. Actually, those aren't even working. So I'm going to undo that. Let's see. I'm going to undo my bind. I just broke my toes. They don't work anymore. So I think what I need to do is probably take these joints and shift P, unparent them. And let's see. This guy should be lower. I'm going to drop this guy back down. Snap him to the ground. And then freeze his transformations. I'm going to go to the front view. Yeah. All right, so freeze transformations. And I'm going to see where their center pivot is. Yeah, okay. And this may give me the same result. So maybe the first way I rigged it over here is better. But we're just experimenting right now. So my toe left, I need to make sure to parent this joint to toe left con, hit P, toe right to toe right con, toe back to toe back con, and then toe front to toe front con. All right, let's see if it lets me parent it this time, or if the bind works this time. All right, so I'm going to go to my joints, shift, waist, chest, neck, head, top, toe, and then my pawn. I'm going to say bind skin. Now do my toes work? Yeah, they work. And I don't know that that's any better, but you can play with that. So that's the important thing, is that your character is, you can, it's a very simple rig. We're not really getting in, even though we bound the mesh to the joints, we're not going to really get into painting weights. And that gives you more, that's where you can control how much influence the joints have over the vertices. But with this simple rig, you should get the deformations close enough to what you need without having to get into paint weights, because that's just too much time that we really don't have for this assignment. This is just a simple, super simple primitive theater character. All right. 207. So what questions do you guys have?
I noticed when you were binding the toe, you didn't bind the joints, you binded the controls instead.
The first time?
Or well, the second time.
Oh, when I messed it up? Yeah, that's probably what I did. That's probably why it locked them, because I accidentally selected, I should have selected the joints instead of the controls. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. One more thing that I forgot to mention. Now that my joints are, now that my character is bound, what I really want to do is select my joints and lock them. So I don't want to animate my joints. I don't want to be able to select my joints and animate them. So I'm going to select all my joints: base, waist, chest, neck, head, top, and then toe left, toe right, back, front. I'm going to select the names of all these in the channel box, right click and go to lock selected. Then I'm going to also do that with my nulls. So I'll probably do it with this guy too. So I'm going to select my nulls. And I'm going to freeze their or not freeze their transformations. I'm going to lock them. So I should not be animating the joints or the nulls. The only thing I'm animating are the controls. That's a really important concept in animation. I can move my whole character around without having to touch the joints outside of just whatever the control handle that it's parented to, well, it'll follow. So this is really what I'm looking for. MSR underscore group base con null, and then base con, and then joint space group base joint, all these just like we created. And this, this may seem kind of a long a long joint hierarchy, but this is actually a very, very simple rig. This is essentially, like what you would animate maybe in one finger. So imagine this for times 20 fingers. And then if you want to animate the toes, times 20 toes, and then probably at least 50 or 60 controls for the face. And then I don't know how many spine joints you want. So rigs can get very, very long and very, very messy. And I've been showing you to work in the hypergraph. You can also do this stuff if you prefer in the if you go to Windows Outliner, and you can see the same hierarchy. If I select MSR 1, you can drop it down, you can expand it or whatever. I've just always been used to using the hypergraph for this stuff, but whatever works for you, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Any other questions?
Okay, so my characters are like when they're plants, they kind of have curves to them as they're like stems. Do I need to
Yeah.
straighten those out before I need to rig them?
You know what? That's a really good question, and I think you're actually right. I think you probably want them starting as a straight cylinder, and then you would build in the squash. Because if you build in if you have it as a default with a curve, if you ever want to get out of it to go to different positions, it's going to be a lot more work. So it's easier if you actually start with a straight character. That's a good point. And for the most
Okay.
part, it shouldn't be too much work, right? You just make a straight cylinder instead of a curvy one, right?
Yeah, I didn't use the pawn. Like I created my own model.
Yeah. Your characters were simple enough that I was okay with that. The
Okay.
whole reason we're using the pawn is because I just want to make sure that people are rigging something that's super simple and not with hands and feet and stuff like that.
I have all the layers like labeled for like the head and the mouth and the stem and whatnot, but they're not combined. Like I want them to be all one piece.
Hold on, I'm gonna stop recording.